Hi everyone, I'm Paul and I tell you everything you need to know about the artisanplus planning and inventory solution for coffee roasters. Today we are looking into some of the graphs visualize your roasts. You can use them to get a high-level overview of your production of the past and the future. We go to the Roast tab, see the list of our latest roasts, and open the graph panel with a little slider right here. First of all, pay attention that you can specify the location or locations from which the data is taken. In my case, I have done all my roasts in the roastery, therefore that needs to be selected. So let's dive right into the first diagram. We chose an entry for each roast day of the year. My first was January 6th, when I roasted 4 batches with a total of 47 kg, yielding nearly 40 kg, with an average loss of about 15%. Moving further along, we see the information for each day and the added total in parentheses up to this date. It is worth noting that roasts marked as discarded are not included in the calculation. So my last roast day is May 20th, while if I go to the list of roasts, I have one on May 21st, but it is discarded and therefore doesn't show up in the graph. The data from last year is shown in grey. We can make the appropriate tooltip appear by hovering near the bottom of the graph. The next diagram groups all of the roasts per month. In January, there are about 100 batches amounting to 1,200 kilograms with an average loss of 15%. In parentheses, we can see the respective amount and yield from the same month last year. Nice to know is that in all the graphs in artisanplus, you can click on an entry in the legend below to hide or show a specific part. For example, the data from last year. But you can get a more fine-grained control of the period that is displayed by using the from and to controls to set a specific date range, for example, the current month. We then see exactly the information narrowed down to May. This gets more interesting for the graphs further down the page. But before we get to those, let's have a brief look at the yearly production. For the previous year, all the information is already there and the numbers should match the accumulated production data above. In addition, we receive a summary of the energy consumed and CO2 produced during the roasting process. For the current year, all batches done so far are displayed, about 6,000 kg roasted. What you can see in parentheses are the projected amounts that the system calculates based on our current stock and the amount roasted in the past. So we estimate that our yearly production yield will be at 13.5 metric tons, which is nice since it's a considerable increase compared to last year. For the next part, keep in mind that depending on your setup, you might not see all the information shown here. If you don't have blends, you won't see the graph on blends. If you don't have multiple users, or none in the chosen time frame, you won't see a diagram on those. Same here. If you don't measure the energy used by your roaster in the Artisan client, you won't get the energy display here. If you do, you can click on the number and switch units from BTU to joule to calories to watt hours and even horsepower hours. Now to the final 3 categories of graphs provided here. The first shows how much of each bean or blend you have roasted. For the Copan Deluxe, we roasted nearly 56 bags and still have 4 bags left, about 7% of our purchased coffee. The system conveniently calculates how many batches we can still run and estimates the time frame for which production will last, here about 4 weeks. The same works for blends as well. We just started roasting the best of Honduras and have 26 batches left. Finally, we have some more details about our roasting processes. If you have ambient sensors installed, you get those displayed over time right here. And if you have multiple machines, you get a quick impression on their usage on the left. The inner circle is for the previous year, the outer circle for the current year. In my case, I seem to consistently use them 1 and 2/3 of the time respectively. On the right, the work of your different roast masters is visualized. As you can see, all roasts in 2024 were done by me, while this year about half of the operation was done by colleagues. As shown before, we can hide specific entries to get a more detailed view. We are also able to limit the time frame of the data we look at. We can do that at the top of the page or use the splitter to have the date controls and the graph both visible at the same time. We can, for example, choose only the last 2 months and have the list and the graphs updated in real time. This also works if we restrict by origin. It is even possible to not only choose specific origins, but also filter based on larger regions, right here at the top of the list. And the data is updated immediately. Besides date and origin, we have a multitude of filters we can apply to the list of roasts. I talked about those already in a previous video. And those also apply to the graphs. I can, for example, look at a specific person, hit the search button, and we get the 117 roasts for Griff, the machines he worked on, the beans, etc., and the total production. We see that he just started in January. Let's reset this and instead briefly look at a specific coffee. And say only from the beginning of the year to today. And again, we get everything about machines, users, energy, etc., but specific for the chosen beans and its potential blends. And this is a powerful tool to get an overview on what is happening in your roastery and also helps you in keeping it successful in the future. But there's so much more we can see on the platform. Stay tuned and look forward to the next videos where I will talk about other types of reports, roast planning, and a lot of the other great features of Artisan Plus.